think it's one of the things that we said for years is that we wanted to have the conversations that were being had in bars and parking lots and whatever. And so this is a good example of us just trying to have it in.
If there's something strange in the promo hood, who you gonna call? Promo UPFront. If there's something weird and it don't look good, I say, who you gonna call? Promo UPFront. And that is exactly how we're going to start off the podcast. A little disjointed, but who cares? It's All Hallows Eve here on the Promo UPFront podcast. And we're talking episode number 226.
Wow.
Today, I am one of your hosts, Bill Petrie. With me as always, let's call him the handicapper of horse racing himself, the one and only Coshocton Kirby Hasseman. Kirby! How are you on this All Hallows Eve?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. This is not a holiday that I spend a lot of time in. My kids are older, but grandkids, it's fun to watch them do it. But I think most of the trick-or-treating and stuff around here has already happened. So, I'm doing well, man. Business is doing pretty well, and so that always brings me joy. So, how are you, buddy?
Good. Just busy like you. I am kind of in the middle of my gauntlet of travel. Spent the last 2 weekends at various children's colleges. And then this weekend, I am going on a much anticipated annual guys trip that I do every year with my college roommates.
Awesome.
We're going to Memphis, so I'll be driving there on Friday. Really looking forward to that, getting away. But it's one of those things. I know you don't love Halloween. You don't love dress up. It's just not your thing. But a lot of people do, and they love to do it really so they stand out, right? They stand out in the crowd. And when I was thinking about that, it got me to thinking about something else, Kirby, as things often do. We all agree it's important to stand out, especially in an industry where far too often the competition is selling the same products from the same suppliers all the time.
Yeah.
Well, Kirby, I've got a solution for you. Instead of putting a logo on a product, how about showing your clients some completely kick-ass branded merchandise? You know what I'm talking about, Kirby. The type of merchandise that elicits that wow and aha that we love to get from our clients. Well, Kirby, I want you to look no further than our pals over at 7 Sourcing, because they're experts in the field. They work with distributors to help them source custom orders direct from fully vetted overseas factories, and they do it without you having to deal with the factory itself. 7 Sourcing has a very strong pedigree when it comes to navigating direct custom merch sourcing, as their team has over a quarter of a century. And even though I went to Texas A&M, that's 25 years of successful importing experience. Now, even better, Kirby, they work directly with each distributor on brand strategy, product development, product sourcing, order management, quality control, compliance, and logistics. In other words, they completely demystify direct custom sourcing. And while they don't source merchandise at the lowest possible cost, that's just not what they're going to do. They will do that. I apologize. They absolutely are going to source it at the lowest possible cost. Come on, Bill, get with it. They absolutely source it at the lowest possible cost. They're not going to sacrifice quality or safety to meet those price points. 7 Sourcing isn't interested in meeting expectations. They only serve to exceed them. And I know you know Russ Mogel and his team over at 7 Sourcing. Kirby, I know you're a huge advocate for direct custom sourcing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm an advocate for direct sourcing when you have the proper partner. I am not, for me, and again, I can only speak to me, I'm not an advocate for just going over there willy-nilly and taking chances with safety and all that stuff. I want to have somebody who understands the ins and outs, and that's what 7 Sourcing does so well.
Agreed, Kirby. I'm not an advocate of that either. What's interesting, I did speak to Willy Nilly himself, and he is also not an advocate of doing it yourself. He wants you to use 7 Sourcing.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Of course, it takes a little bit longer. The average turnaround is 75 days, but at extra planning is absolutely worth it to get that wow moment. We sure absolutely think so. So when you're ready to turn your next great idea into something more, something that becomes truly part of an iconic brand. Reach out to Seven Sourcing at sales@sevensourcing.com. All right, Kirby. So you have the Upfront podcast, part of the podcast today, but I'm taking over. I'm going to do it. So what I wanted to talk about,
Okay.
I want to do some speculation. We
Okay.
don't generally speculate on this podcast. I want to do some speculating. So there is the open role of PPAI president and CEO.
Hmm.
We know that they have engaged an outside search firm to solicit candidates for that. But I'm only aware of two candidates that have thrown their hat in the ring. So there may be others, there may be not. And I want
Okay.
to talk about those two candidates, being respectful to both of them because they're both well qualified. And I thought maybe we could get to a place where we might have an idea of what we'd like to see. Again,
Okay.
this is not trying to be controversial. This is just conversations I think people are actually having. We're going to have it here, record it,
Okay.
and then get yelled at later for it.
Okay.
So
Well,
I
I'm
see
super excited
two.
you brought it up there.
Me too. Hey, nothing better to kick off November than getting verbally kicked in the groin. All right. So I see there's two candidates that I'm aware of. You have Dawn Olds from who is the current interim CEO and president of PPAI. I believe she's thrown her hat in the ring, saying,
Okay.
"I'd like to do this full time." And it's very well documented that Ellen Tucker, who currently works at PPAI as I can't remember her title, I'll get it wrong, but I know she's in charge of Expo. She's a
Mhm.
VP. She's been in the association world for a long time. So I want to talk about those two folks and get your reaction here. So I'm going to do a little bit of talking to give you an opportunity to think while I talk, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So with Dawn, couple pros, couple cons.
Okay.
Couple pros. She absolutely has provided a knowledgeable and steady hand during an incredibly difficult time. This is not to throw Dale Dunham under the bus. Dale did some great things
Yep.
at PPAI during an incredibly difficult time.
Yeah.
But Dawn has done a really nice job as interim president and CEO. I've had the opportunity to work with her as part of being a vice chair of marketing for PPEF, the Promotional Products Education Foundation. I've seen her at several shows and had conversations with her. She has done exactly what I thought she'd do, provided a really steady hand and provided some really good leadership during a transition time.
Yep.
That's amazing. She understands how the board and staff, that dynamic, she understands how it works. She was a board chair. She's done that, and now she is on staff, so she really sees both sides. There's a lot of value in that. Um, she's got amazing industry background. Like I said, I've worked with her. I worked with her at Halo. She is extremely well versed in the industry. She
Mhm.
understands the weirdness of this industry, and she cares. She cares
Mhm.
very deeply about the
Yep.
success of our industry. Some of the potential cons I see with Dawn,
Okay.
maybe it is that promo industry background. Being I'm not sure that the next leader of PPAI needs to come from the industry. I'm not real sold on that right now, personally.
Okay.
She may continue to live in Sterling. I am absolutely an advocate of, for most roles, remote work can work, working remotely. Sterling is about as remote as you can get. It's at least 2 hours to O'Hare, to fly anywhere. And I think the leader of PPA needs to be in Dallas, needs to be at headquarters. That's got to be home base because that role demands so much travel,
Mm.
so much in the way of going to this trade show, going to overseas, doing all those things. To add another week of travel where you're away from home, but you're at headquarters, I think is really difficult. I think that's one of the things that was challenged with when Dale was there, quite
Right.
frankly. I think it was a mistake that they allowed the president CEO to work remotely. And then third, she hasn't led an association before. It's not saying she couldn't do it, but she's never really worked in the association world other than doing this interim job. So I can stop here. We can talk about Dawn, or I can go
Mm.
on and talk about Ellen if you'd like, because I saw you taking some notes. So I
Yep.
want to make sure we do this how you
Yeah, I
want to do it.
like, yeah, that's fine. So yeah, Dawn, both of us worked at Halo, so I think you knew Dawn
Yeah.
better than I knew Dawn, but I knew Dawn as just exceptionally uh,
Yeah.
just well organized, bright, amazing, all the things. I
Yeah.
actually, when
She's
I wrote down industry experience, experience with a big provider like Halo, and board
Yep.
experience. So what you said is right. I think my initial
Yeah.
reaction to the remote thing
Yeah.
um, is I kind of go back and forth on that one. Um, and I just, again, for the sake of this discussion, right? So I hear what you're saying, and I think that there would be value in having the leader of the organization be in Dallas. I see what you're saying. That being said, one of the things you said is like they're traveling so much that almost plays to the opposite point, right? Like it's like like you're going to be on the
Yeah.
road doing remote meetings when you go to all these meetings and all these other things. So I don't think that's the big detriment that I hear what you're saying, but I
Yeah.
can kind of see both sides of that one.
So let me explain that a little bit more.
Yep.
So what I think ends up happening, and it's a byproduct of it. Can someone do the job in quotes
Yeah.
remotely? 100%.
Yeah.
I think what happens though, you have so much staff based in Dallas
Yeah.
that when the leader comes to town for a week, it's I'm here for the week. We've got to get so much done because
Mm,
I'm here that it ends up kind of you end up on this riding this crest of hyperactivity the week they're there and then a lot lower activity when they're not there. I think it creates a culture of almost panic.
mm,
Panic's not the word, but just hyper intensive work that
mm.
is not sustainable long term.
Okay.
Plus, you have someone who is on the road a lot and they can't go home at night when they're working,
Mm.
quote unquote, at the office. I think in this role, it's a little bit different. So I'm going to disagree with you on that one.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's talk about Ellen Tucker. Pros for Ellen Tucker. She has served very capably under both Paul Bellantone, who obviously was the CEO and
Mm,
president before Dale for almost a decade, and Dale Denham, and now under Dawn. So she understands the different types of leaders that PPAI has had. So I think she has an
yeah.
advantage. She can say, I can take bits from this, bits from that, and bits from here, and really kind of form a true leadership style that would be her own. So I think
Mm,
that's a pro. She completely understands how an association should be run because she understands the balance between board initiatives and staff initiatives. Being on staff for so long, she has that PP or that association background, which I think is pretty important. She has been at PPI for 10 years. She's
okay.
been there a long time. So she really understands how the building runs at its peak and also has seen maybe where there's been some cultural challenges. So I think
Mm,
those are some things very much in her favor. I think the big con for her, the big potential gotcha is I don't know. She's never led an organization like that
right.
before, and so that's a big job, but everybody's had that first opportunity to do
Right.
something. So I see both sides with that. So that's my thoughts on Ellen, to be honest with you.
Okay.
What do you thought?
So again, I was writing as you were, but when you said served
Hmm.
under both leaderships or multiple leadership styles, that's literally the first thing I'm like, I love it
Yeah,
because again, I had a great relationship with both Paul and Dale, and
me too.
obviously seeing Dawn, but they were different, right? They were different
Yeah,
cats. And so having that under each one, I think there's value in that. The association experience you've mentioned before, and honestly, you're good about thinking about this stuff more than I do, and I think that's a really good point. The other
yeah,
one is she's sort of in charge or has been in charge of the biggest event in the industry. Like
you bet.
like having
Yeah,
that hands-on experience not only is good because you understand when you're delegating. I always say that when
yeah,
I'm better at leading people who do jobs that I've done before because I understand it better and I can make
yeah,
suggestions that are not stupid. Um, because I've lived that. I think that's a real big positive to that. And honestly, also,
right.
in a way of like helping to serve the regionals, right? Like because they're trying to put on events and with varying levels of success. And so I think that's a positive. Um,
Yeah,
and then the having not led an organization like that before, I totally see where you're coming from on that
yeah.
being sort of a detriment. But
Possibly,
yeah,
but we all have to have
possibly.
that first time too.
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you have to have the
it's
first time. I think that's a really good point. And I think also, I guess the pushback I'd give is when I mention the association, many people bring up Ellen as if she is
Mhm.
already a leader. She hasn't maybe been the
She
face,
is. Yeah.
but being a leader, maybe she has, and maybe this is like just putting her in a
Yeah.
position where she's already been in many ways. So
Right.
again, that's That's my take.
No, great points, Kirby. And I'm sure there's some dark horse candidates we don't
Yeah.
know about. We're only talking about the two we are 99% sure have thrown their hat in the ring here. So there may be people from the association world we've never heard of. There may
Yep.
be people in the industry who've thrown their hat in the ring that we're not aware of. So I do have a solution, though, that I
Okay.
think would be ideal because I got to tell you, I think both are incredibly talented, vivacious,
Mhm.
effervescent, capable leaders. I
Can I
really, really do. Yeah.
can I bring up something else that just
Yeah.
popped in my head that I
Yeah.
think you'll appreciate? I love that they're both female.
100%. And I'm about
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
you very no, you stole my thunder. I love the fact
I'm
that it
sorry.
looks like the two leaders. That's okay. Okay, it's okay. It's not really that big of a thunder. I think it's great that the two leaders in the clubhouse, for lack of a better term,
Yeah,
are female, and I
yeah.
love the fact that we may have a female voice leading this organization
I
and
think
the
that's
industry.
great.
So
Yeah, so we're on the same
here are
page
my
there. Sorry.
thoughts. Yeah. I do think it's time. So I've been a huge advocate of, especially 5 years ago, we needed more people from the promotional products industry in PPAI. I beat that drum hard. I think, though, it's time we have an association person, someone that comes from that background, understands the particular mechanics of how an organization that's not for profit works. I think it's time for an association person to run the association. Um, Here's the ideal solution I have. I think at Expo in 2025, so what's that, 3 months away, whatever it is, 2 months away, you announce that Dawn will take the job for 1 year until Expo of 2026, while Ellen is the CEO in waiting and will learn under Dawn for a period of 1 year. That's public. It's no mystery about it. We all are aware of it. And that way, Ellen can really shadow Dawn, learn things from Dawn, her perspective, grow into that role, help Dawn make some of those decisions as well while Dawn kind of sunsets out. And then at Expo 2026, hand the reins to Ellen.
Hmm.
To me, I think that's the ideal solution. It's not split, it's not Solomon's baby here. I think it addresses every possible concern that you and I spoke about.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think that would be amazing personally.
Yeah, it's again super interesting. You've given this way more thought than me, obviously, having brought it up. But I guess my take is just simply that I would be incredibly. This is the kind of thing where there's a leadership discussion where I'm really excited because I would be
Yeah,
incredibly comfortable with either one of
me
them
too.
taking the
Oh
reins.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm down. I'm down with whatever on that
And
one.
look, we're not endorsing anybody here, kids.
Yeah, yeah,
We are having a conversation that other people are having.
yeah.
What's going to happen at PPAI? We've always committed to doing that on this podcast. We're
Yes.
going to continue to do it. And so I know this. Whatever whomever is chosen, whether it's Dawn, whether it's Ellen, where it's someone mystery person we don't know, whether they come from a promotional products association background, a PPA background, like an actual promotional products background, or they come from the association world. They're going to be capable, and Kirby and I, and we hope everybody else will support the absolute hell out of them moving
Yeah,
forward. So
for
I don't
sure.
want anybody coming at either Kirby or me and saying, "Oh, you endorse this." No, we didn't endorse anybody. We're having a conversation. Grow up.
Yeah, one
Hey,
of the
Kirby.
real quick,
Oh
one of
yeah,
the things that you said there, and I think it's one of the things that we said for years, is that we
yeah.
wanted to have the conversations that were being had in bars and parking lots and whatever. And so this is a good example of us just trying to have it in a non-emotional way. So I thought that was great.
100%. I think it's a fun conversation. All right, Kirby. Hey, many people know how to build a business, but few understand not only when to sell that business, but the process involved to ensure that you find the right partner and maximize the return on your investment. Honestly, you really need an expert, especially someone from the people from the promotional products industry. And that's where certified marketing consultants comes in. Jamie Watson and her team have decades of experience in facilitating private company sales in the branded merch space.
Yep.
So to help you evaluate if it's time to sell your business, reach out to certified marketing consultants at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, Kirby, I'm going to shut my pie hole. Please give us a topic.
Yeah, so this was actually what I was going to bring up, and so this will be a good second one. So I don't know if you've seen this, but Chili's is killing it. casual food dining is not like casual
Yeah.
food restaurants across the board are tanking. Red Lobster's declared bankruptcy. TGI Fridays is
Yep.
on the cusp. There's a bunch of them. Hooters, I think, is doing the, looking at stuff, but Chili's is doing really well. 14% in same store sales in quarter three, a double digit growth, and a 6.5% increase in foot traffic. So it's in stark contrast to what. So when everybody else is failing and one place is doing well, I'm always like, well,
Right.
what's doing it and what could we learn, right? And so
Mhm.
social media and promotion, and credit to Morning Brew, which is where I get my news, but I saw this morning. I thought it was really interesting. They're doing so one is a special pricing. So they're extending
Mhm.
their Big Smasher, which is like the competitor of
Yep.
McDonald's Big Mac. So that's been a significant traffic driver. And then TikTok, famous where it's the triple dipper where you pick three apps and three sauces for 19.99 has shown a big thing. And so social media and price driven promotions have been a big piece of what they are saying has helped. So I mean, talk about anything
Yeah.
you want when it comes to Chili's, but also just like what in my mind, I'm like, okay, so if that's working there, how could that work for distributors and suppliers in the promotional product space? So that's
I
the
think what
topic.
Chili's has tapped into, and I have seen this, so I'm not well versed in it, but I'm versed. Um, I think what Chili's has tapped into is value.
Mhm.
What do people value very highly in their lives? And that is how far can a dollar stretch?
Mhm.
So you recommended how fast casual dining is taking a big hit, because people don't want to spend the money. It's simply cheaper to cook at home or cheaper to go to a fast food where Chili's I
Right,
wouldn't put in the fast food category. They're more,
right.
fast casual or whatever, whatever the dumb term is that you come up with the euphemism. I think in Chili's, I think had been struggling. I mean, like you look at the news, Fridays, TGI Fridays, which to me
Mhm.
is a direct competitor of Chili's, they're shutting doors left and right. It
Yep,
sounds like they're going to file Chapter 11 bankruptcy anytime now, quite honestly.
yep,
So I love the fact that you looked at as how are they doing it? They're doing it two ways. One, it's value. You get a meal, all you can eat chips and
yeah,
salsa, all you can eat. Oh, I'm sorry, all you can drink non-alcoholic beverage, and then the Big Smasher burger.
yeah,
That's for $10.
yeah,
I don't know people going to McDonald's for $10. I don't know how they're doing it. I'm not gonna suggest maybe the food's shitty. I'm not at all, but they're doing it
yeah.
and they're being successful. So the number two in the more marketing aspect of that, Kirby, they are leveraging where they're leveraging TikTok. You mentioned TikTok, and I'm not a huge TikTok guy.
Mhm.
That being said, I do see the value in it for things like this.
Yeah,
Huge value. I think it's such a great value for B2C type communication,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
especially something like this. And I know they've paid some micro influencers and macro influencers to, go to Chili's and do this. And it's paid off.
Yeah,
So as much as we might have influencer marketing fatigue from time to time,
yeah,
shit works.
yeah,
Just like email marketing. Is it sexy? No, this shit works.
yeah,
So I think what you're learning is they've tapped into, okay, what do most of our client base want? They want value. They want a good meal at a decent price and something there's no extras on it. So it's $10.
yeah,
$10.
yeah.
And then more importantly, they communicated it directly to the audience they wanted to reach. They reached them and moved them to action.
Yeah, I love it. I think the value is exactly right. I look at that and go, okay, McDonald's has run promotions of their whatever menu, and they're like
Yeah.
those things are moving the needle right here in what is sort of an uncertain time from an inflation perspective, economy perspective, whatever. And I think that there's a lesson there. It's like, okay, should we be price sensitive? Because I tend to go with, and I'm literally looking at this through the eyes of my own distributor. It's like I tend to look at
Yeah.
quality. I don't like saying $1 specials or whatever. That
No.
being said, if we can do it where we are comfortable with the quality of the item we're promoting, it sounds like in the eyes of the consumer, that is something that's catching attention. And so I'm not
Yeah.
saying I switch my thing, but I need to be paying attention to that trend in my mind.
I agree with you. Here's the thing. People think that cheap in cost effective are the same, and they're not.
Right.
Cheap is cheap. Cheap feels cheap. It looks cheap. It smells cheap. It tastes cheap. It is cheap.
Yeah.
Cost effective means you're getting the most for your dollar.
Yeah.
You don't have to sacrifice quality, generally speaking, for a product or
Sure.
a food to be cost effective. So I
Yeah.
think it's really looking at, cheap food is cheap food. I've had cheap food, so have you. We've both, been poor college students, so we understand what cheap food is.
Yeah.
Cost effective is different. What Chili's doing is cost effective. I doubt their margins are very big because I think the genius behind this is they get people in, bottomless everything except for your
Mhm.
burger and fries. So, man, this is cheap. I'm going to go ahead and order that beer.
It's
I'm going to go
exactly
ahead and
right.
get that
Yeah. Upsell.
margarita
Yeah.
because that's where the profits are. And you know what? Let's get the molten volcano caramel cake or whatever the hell the
Yeah.
dessert of the day is.
Yeah.
So there's a method to this. It's a loss leader. It's an old concept, but it works. The loss leader. Let's get
Yeah.
them in the door, and once they're here, things change a little bit.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
All right, Kirby, you had your end user show about
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Now,
Yeah. That's right.
normally, as we've done this podcast, we will talk about your end user show either right before you do it or right
Hmm.
after you do it. And I purposely, and I told you I was going to do this, I wanted to wait a couple weeks for a
Hmm.
specific reason. I wanted to ask you a question, two questions. So
Okay.
let's ask the first one first. Generally, how things go, asking the first question first.
You're doing
Um,
great.
I want to know looking back, I know you do a post mortem. You look back,
Mhm.
okay, what was good? What I want to know the two things that were really good that were,
Mhm.
man, this is better than we've ever done before,
Mhm.
and we're going to replicate. And I
Yep.
want to know at least one thing that, okay, maybe we wouldn't do that the same next year. Not because it was bad, but maybe there's an area for improvement. Do you have those?
Yeah. So right off the top of my head, so the things we did better. Number one, we did the normal like social media marketing of it.
Hmm.
We actually did physical printed invites, and that made an impact. People brought them to the show,
Yep.
and we had fun with that, and our numbers were up, 25% or something like that, just in sheer attendance. So that was good. Our promotion. Yeah. Go ahead.
And let me interrupt. You did, just so people who don't know, Kirby did a Wonka theme. He dressed as Willy Wonka. I don't know this, but I'm assuming the invite was some variation of a golden ticket, correct?
Yes. So, and that
Okay,
leads to my second point.
gotcha.
So we did do a golden ticket, but we did a theme that worked well, and we went all in on it. So I was very hesitant to dress up as Wonka. I didn't really want to do that. It was
It's not your
uncomfortable,
thing. We
not my
talked about it at the
thing.
top of the
Yeah.
podcast.
But man, the response was great. I mean, I've never had so many of my customers walk in and want to take a picture with me and Jade did a really nice job, and everybody, the whole team did, but she did a whole balloon arch that people ran to get pictures, and they were wanting to get pictures with me, with Willy Wonka, whatever. And so those are, we always have great suppliers that do a great job. There's a lot that we do right, but I will say, me doing the thing that I didn't want to do that kind of put us, that showed that we
Yep.
were all in, we got extra response out of. So those are two things and both
Okay.
tied to the theme, really.
And what would you not do again? What one learning? Okay, let's maybe shift this, change this. What about that?
Yeah. I don't know if this is the right answer, but so we always change the theme every year. And at
Mhm.
the beginning of it, I'm like, okay, let's go back to one of the themes we've done in the past that were, quite frankly, a little easier, like a
Sure.
tailgate theme or a Oktoberfest theme
Right.
that we've done in the past, but it's been a long time. But the team is really pushing me to be like, well, the response on this kind of theme has been really good. We did
Okay.
branded things a couple years ago, and response
Yep,
was
I
really
remember.
good. And so making it a little bit more of a contemporary, more current theme. Obviously the Wonka movie was happening and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
I was planning on going a little bit more old school, and I
Yeah.
think the team is kind of pushing me to not do that, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think it's good that you get pushed outside your comfort zone. We
Yeah,
all know that's where the growth happens, so
yeah,
good
yeah,
for you.
yeah,
One other question. Let's talk about follow-up. How are you
yeah,
ensuring follow-up from you and your team a couple weeks
yeah,
out?
yeah.
Because
So
this event will not be successful if you don't follow up.
100% fortunes in the follow up. So in the past, we have, and this, for years, I've automated follow up.
Yep.
So we have a system in place that we tag them, and then they get an email. But literally, the moment that we tag them, they get an email. And I always loved that, because it was like people would be sitting there having a sandwich after they've walked the show floor and be like, "How'd you already email me?" And that's fine. But then we did another one a week out, then we did another a month out. That was just, and that was while we followed up, we automated some of that. I actually went backwards on this. I scripted it. So I typed up the follow up, but I want each salesperson to, and me and whatever, to be the impetus. I want the email to come from them. I want, because they saw each other at the show and all that sort of thing. And the response has been pretty good on that, because then the team owns their contact a little bit more. And I found that to be really good. That being said, we need to do more. Pretty
Always.
much the answer is always like, you think you've done enough follow-up, you probably
Mhm.
haven't. And so
Yeah.
honestly, hearing you ask me that, I'm like triggered going, okay, we need to do some more tomorrow. I
Well,
was like,
and that's, I love your answers, by the way. And of course, there's always more, but I love the fact that you've automated it because there are some great tools that allow you to do that.
sure,
And then what that can do, it doesn't replace the personal follow-up. It augments it. It enhances it. And I
sure.
really, really love that. I think so many people, when they put the work in to an event like this, and I know it's a ton of work,
Yeah.
especially because you do change the theme every year.
Yep.
And I think this was a new location for you this year. So that presents some challenges and differences. It's not as familiar, not as comfortable. And you get to the day of the event and the event's over. And far too often, I think people just go, oh,
Yeah.
man, I'm glad that's done.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And you miss the value of that event when
Yeah.
you don't follow up.
The other thing I've done better in the last 2 years, and last year in particular, last year was the first time at this new venue. So this one was at least the second time
Okay.
at the venue. So that helps. But I walked into it with the team and saying, hey, this might be our last year doing this. And they were
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like, I want to make sure that we're tracking. We're
Right.
tracking the sales, we're tracking the engagements, we're tracking that better than we have in the past. And because I told the team, like, hey, this is every year could be the last year if we don't see return on this investment. So
Yeah.
this year I was more transparent with how much I actually spend on the event. I told the whole team, hey, here's what we're
Yep.
spending, and here's what we would need to do to recoup that. Because it's not like,
Right.
hey, I've
Love
spent
it.
5 grand, I need 5 grand. No, if you spend
No,
5 grand, you need
you need
25, or
15 or
yeah, like
20.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so we've done a better job of doing
Good.
that, if that makes sense.
Well, there's some great learnings there, and I don't want to offer that assistance out, but I'm sure if there's other distributors, hey, I'm looking at doing this.
Yeah.
Kirby, would you talk to me about what you've learned, what you've not? I'm sure Kirby would love to chat with you. I love taking Kirby's time and
Mhm.
spending it for others.
And I tell
Um,
you real quick, I mean, Matt Shukart had his first, he's an industry
yep.
buddy of ours. He did
Yeah.
his event the day before my event, and this was his first year doing it. And so
Yeah.
he and I talked a lot about it in advance, and it's really cool to see it come together. So I know he did a great job.
Yeah, and he did his complete with a rebranding of his
Yes.
company, so it was a
So
pretty
cool.
exciting thing
So
for him.
cool.
And
Yeah.
he, from I've spoken with him as well, and he feels like they knocked it out of the park. I tell you what, you know who else is going to knock it out of the park, especially if you want some direct custom sourcing. That's our good pals over at Seven Sourcing. They completely demystify that process because they work directly with fully vetted factories, and they're going to work with each distributor on brand strategy, product development, product knowledge, order management, quality control, compliance, and logistics. Tell you what, you're looking to create those wow and aha moments. You want to turn your next idea into something that's an iconic brand for your client. Look no further than Seven Sourcing. Email them at sales@sevensourcing.com. Now, Kirby, I need to go get ready for Halloween tonight. And who knows, I might even visit your house.